I think people don't think about that with medicine or their own health. Is trying to, I mean, they talk about prevention, right?
Yeah.
But plan is different than prevention,
It
right?
can be.
It
Yes.
can be, right? I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
I hear that a lot. It's like, oh yeah, I'm trying to prevent it, but do you have a plan if something does occur?
Yeah.
And it's weird because I think naturally I have a tendency to not want to have a plan. I do a lot of prevention. And I think my story is a little different that way, is the fact that we had really poor healthcare growing up. And it was just because of the situation of being an immigrant. We didn't really have that much resources. We didn't have the ability to go get medicine, so we did a lot of traditional medicines. And you probably see that a lot, right? Holistic medicine at that time. And I really didn't want to go into anything medicine. I mean, my goal was to try to be as social and kind to people and try to figure out how to finance that.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been that way. And what turned me on to physical therapy was that there's a role of kind of like prevention, planning up front, but also on the back end, right? Because like when you see somebody, and I was always interested in doing that. And I like the idea of planning, ahead and doing those things. Now, I guess the next question follow-up then, maybe the bipolar of that is, what are some of the habits you see in people that in their healthcare that you recognize that kind of creeps up on them or surprises them or makes them less resilient, right? Like, what are some of the habits you see in people that they're kind of shocked, right? Like something happened to them or catches them off guard, and so it might make them catastrophize or have this other experience, right? That you see with people, maybe even be fearful.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, it's a wide, various experiences from different people. I was just thinking about the saying that something like this is like a dream without a plan is just a wish, right? But I think that what will happen with a lot of people, especially I think as you are younger, there's a sense of inevitability, invincibility that you're not going to have to deal with anything, right?
I still feel that.
Yeah, yeah. That feeling's gone from me. I'm already experiencing the. As I'm out running for my fitness test for the Air Force, I'm definitely feeling.
You're looking good, man.
Yeah.
You're looking good.
No. COVID's been rough. Without doing our fitness test for about a year.
Right.
But as you sort of look at that and say, well, I don't really need to deal with this now. I'm not feeling the effects. I've always said if people just did just some general healthy lifestyle things, right? We got some exercise, we got some decent sleep, we didn't drink to excess, we didn't smoke. There's a lot of things I would not even be involved in. It is definitely better to work on the prevention side of it, but you have to have a plan for that.
Yeah.
I think of a patient that I have. I spoke with somebody yesterday, and she was worried about her kidney function, and the aspect of like how the blood pressure may be affecting the kidneys, and yes, it's probably having an impact on it. But I have a young patient who is very, very young, had very high uncontrolled blood pressure for many years, but had no symptoms. This is what we call the silent killer, right? It doesn't give you a warning, doesn't tell you there's a problem. If a person rips their rotator cuff apart, I don't have to tell them you should come see me. They're like, this hurts, I can't do this, do something about it, right? But a blood pressure is an example where it gives you no symptoms.
Right.
It's rare that it can, but it's rare that it will. And he really didn't seek care until I saw him and his kidneys were basically already failing, and now is having to get on dialysis and hopefully we'll get a transplant. And he's otherwise healthy enough that he would do well if he gets his transplant. But we ignore things if we're not feeling an immediate need, right? And that's kind of our society is like, financially, I'll get it now, I'll pay for it later, right? I'm not going to worry about that right now, versus, I got cash to pay for this versus, I can make the payment, so I'll just get all the stuff I want and I'll worry about the consequences down the road. We do that medically with our healthcare. I always tell people, you really shouldn't treat your bodies the way I treat my cars. Now, sadly, I shouldn't tell myself, but I will. I had a little Volkswagen Passat, loved little car, right? It's a little older car, but every time I would turn right, it would go tick, 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 tick. I turned left, it'd be fine, right? And the car drove, and I was like, I'm busy. I don't have enough time. If I go to the mechanic, he's going to tell me it's going to cost me a fortune. It's like, I don't have the time to. Well, I did that for about a year, and I finally took it in, and they're like, well, yeah, it would have been about $200 a job, but a strut or something like that.
Right.
Don't ask me about cars. I don't know anything about them. But,
Yeah.
and it turned out I had to replace the whole axle.
Wow.
Because I had something that was a little early problem I could have taken care of if I had addressed it, but I just ignored it.
Yeah.
And I think the worst habit people have is that they don't plan, and they just have a tendency to ignore and put things off, right? It's like, I don't want to know, and I don't want to deal with it, but you will deal with it. It's just going to be much more difficult to deal with. I tell people that there's really very few things that if we catch them early, we can't have a major impact. So I think of cancer in particular. There are very few rare cancers that honestly, it doesn't matter when you catch them, the prognosis is going to be very poor. But with today's medical advances and therapies, the majority of cancers are not a death sentence. We have amazing ways of dealing with cancer, but the sooner I can catch it, the better those options become. So rather than waiting, going in and being more proactive and finding out something bad and finding out early, it's going to be better. But the worst habits I think people have is that they don't think about it. If I don't think about it, it's not there. Well, that's not the case. And then they just don't make the effort to put in that early detection. So the habits are just don't think about it, don't worry about it, don't plan for it, and then it will sneak up on them.